I genuinely believe the title of this video. I think there is a high chance that oldschool Runescape PVP will be gone in few years. So let's start from the beginning. We just got done with one of the most successful versions of TMM in Runescape's history. Over 250,000 accounts signed up to play this temporary PvP game mode. But it brought up a question among many people. Why is PvP so disliked by majority of Runescape players? Today I'm gonna try to find an answer for that by looking at multiple different factors and figure out the biggest bottlenecks that Runescape PvP faces to see if it has any chance of surviving at all. And if you think about it, on the surface it's actually quite simple. Every single action you do in oldschool Runescape has a positive outcome. You complete a quest and get rewarded. You open up a clue scroll and get loot. You level up and progress your account. Even killing the most tedious bosses in the game can have a positive impact once you're done with the grind. Every move you make puts you in a better situation. Except PvP. It's the only place in the entire game where you can move backwards. Not only can you lose your items and money, but also your time, which these days is extremely valuable to people. The average age of a Runescape player is already reaching old man status, which means having a job, family, other hobbies, friends, and God knows what else. The less time you can play Runescape, the more meaningful everything on your account needs to be. It's also the reason why 20 years ago PvP was one of the most popular things in MMOs. The concept of time didn't exist for kids. As someone who actively participated in 2005 PvP circles, dying in the wilderness had zero impact on my decision making. I just go buy another maple shortbow with adamant arrows and run back to Varrock multi-wilderness again. Yes, it was a scary place for many, but knowing that everyone is on the same level meant that you had equal chance of coming out on top. That's just simply not a thing anymore. But that's just one of the many reasons. Recently I made a poll for my audience, and in this poll I asked RuneScape players which part of the game they enjoy the most. 55% of players said PVM, 29% said skilling, 12% said quests, and at the bottom of the poll only 4% of the players said they enjoy PvP the most. Now granted, this poll was made on my channel where the audience is more casual, but I think that's what PvP needs the most. Casual players who are willing to try out something new. And in my opinion, this illustrates perfectly where not only the player base stands, but also Jagex. If we start thinking about the type of updates that come into RuneScape, over half of them are PVM related, whereas less than 5% of the updates have any relevance to PvP or wilderness. I went through every single game update in 2025 and this is what I found out. When it comes to major overhauls, quality of life improvements or new changes, this is how the list goes. PVM updates 14, new quests 7, skilling updates 6, PvP updates 2. One of them was making Bounty Hunter more accessible, the other one was updating Castle Wars. And honestly, I don't even know if you can count Castle Wars as a meaningful PvP update if this is what the minigame looks like. Most players just go AFK for 20 minutes and collect their tickets. I don't know about you, but this picture doesn't scream PvP to me. And it aligns almost exactly with the poll I made. Majority of the updates every year are PVM related because that's what people want. It's very clear that Jagex is also leaning into majority of the player base, and it simply makes the PvP situation even worse. The question we need to ask is simple. Would PvP get more love if the number of updates were bigger and catered towards casual players? Or wouldn't that make any difference at all? Because that's what a lot of PvPers are talking about. We need casual learning grounds for new players. We need to rework the wilderness. We need to do this and we need to do that. Here's the problem though. With the way old school RuneScape works, I don't see any of that happening. Because from Jagex's standpoint, it does make sense why there are so few PvP updates. In the last 3 years, there's been exactly 351 questions asked in old school RuneScape polls, and only 14 of them have failed. That's a whopping 97% success rate. You wanna guess what the other 3% of failed questions are? Yes, it's mostly PvP related. It almost feels like the player base has already made up their mind whether it's polls, gameplay or discussion related to PvP, and take it from real life. Trying to change people's mind these days is extremely difficult. But that's not everything. Recently the CEO of Jagex made a statement that about 50% of the current player base has joined RuneScape in the last couple of years. Think about it. Currently there are almost 200,000 people logged in and roughly about half of them joined in the last couple of years. That is a crazy statistic, and it's actually not surprising that despite all of these new players joining RuneScape, the PvP scene has gone in the complete opposite direction. And once again, I think it paints a pretty good picture. Imagine spawning in Lumbridge. You start fishing, maybe you complete a novice quest, you got some logs, train your skills. It's an extremely relaxing experience as a new player. It almost feels like you can zone out and just live in this fantasy world. And that's probably why so many new players are joining. Real world freaking sucks at the moment. People just want to find an escape RuneScape. I can't ever imagine being a new player in that moment and deciding that PvP is something I want to do. That's not my RuneScape. My RuneScape is gathering items, progressing my account and getting that positive dopamine. It's my comfort zone. Even as a new player, if I do decide to try out PvP, I probably very soon realize how desperately behind I am to every other player. So I just stop doing that and go back to my comfort zone. And I don't see this getting any better in the future. MMO PvP has extremely diminishing returns in 2026, and it's not just RuneScape. Just Try FaZe made a very good point about New World, where they tried to launch as a hardcore PvP MMO game, but throughout their development realized there is no interest in full PvP experience, so they just pivoted back to a normal casual MMO meant for a larger audience. I asked my friend and another content creator, Alonscape, who used to be a hardcore World of Warcraft PvP player, and he said it's exactly the same in that game. The PvP scene is just declining heavily every year for multiple reasons. The interest in PvP MMOs is simply not there anymore, and like I said, it has to do with core aging audience who has no desire to learn PvP in their limited time. If you have 2 hours a day to play your favorite game, you don't want it to be potentially negative experience. It's also probably the reason why a lot of PvP games do have a much younger audience. So in the end, like I said, this has nothing to do with RuneScape, but rather just the way MMO market is shifting. I personally don't think that should be a reason to give up on PvP, but at the end of the day, Jagex is a business, and like we seen last week, they love to follow the money. So if only very small amount of people actively participate in the wilderness, Jagex also can't afford to put so many resources into it. Now you also add the toxic nature of PvP, and it starts to make a lot of sense why 95% of players are on this side of the map and less than 5% of players are over here in the red zone. But is there a fix for this? Can this percentage in the red zone ever get bigger? Well, the main problem is that the people who enjoy PvP and people who don't enjoy PvP will never come to a compromise. You can't give casual players everything they want because that will likely drive away the people who still enjoy PKing. So there is this push and pull between 2 different types of players playing the same game, and Jagex has to sit between them like a good parent, telling both of them to behave. It also doesn't help that there is this massive list of hidden information that only applies in the wilderness, and unless you've done PvP for an extensive amount of time, it's very likely you just don't know about this information. Like for example, did you know that Dome of Fire has a 10% increase in damage against monsters, but 50% damage increase in PvP? So the item works completely differently in wilderness against other players than it does anywhere else in the game. So you would think that Dome of Water also has a 50% PvP damage increase. Wrong, it's only 20% increase. Why? Who knows, it's just a rule in the wilderness. So you would also think that Dome of Earth has either 20% or 50% increased PvP damage, right? Wrong again, it has a 10% increase. Why? Stop asking questions, man. It's just the way things are. And this list of rules just keeps going and going and going. I'm not saying these are necessarily bad rules, but there's just so much hidden information that separates every other aspect of the game with wilderness. And trying to understand all of it is probably off-putting for most players. But I also understand why these specific rules are necessary. I remember the days when safing was considered griefing in the wilderness. If you constantly ate to 99 hit points, the other player would just leave because there was no chance of getting the kill. These days, safing is a necessity. If you're not constantly at high hit points, you just die to a random special attack at any moment. I saw this clip recently where Autoblock did 182 points of damage in 1.2 seconds. Now don't get me wrong, it's a ridiculously hard thing to achieve and requires a lot of RNG and skill, but for me, the funniest part about this clip is that it's not even close to being a max hit. And that's why specific hidden rules for wilderness are absolutely needed. The power creep is real, and the system itself is kinda broken. Every year the best gear gets better, the weapons get stronger, and your hit points is still level 99 like it was 25 years ago. I mean, this year alone we're gonna get new raids with multiple best in slot gear, we're gonna get another Grandmaster quest with insanely good special attack weapon. So to find a band-aid fix for all of these new items, Jagex has to make up unique rules that only apply in one place of the game. But as the game gets more equipment and weapons, the list of rules also has to get bigger until we reach a breaking point. And for casual players who maybe just want to get into PvP, learning all of these rules is just not a viable option. It's not really a long-term solution, but Jagex is basically doing that meme where you're like, hey, let the future me worry about this, not the present me. And guess what? Future is catching up. The next thing, and this irritates me personally as I think it's just a lazy game design, but it doesn't help that in the last couple of years, the only solution Jagex has to get people into PvP is offer them obscene amounts of rewards for participating. Whether it's wilderness bosses, zombie pirates, rogue chest, agility courses, revenant caves or any other wildy activity, these places just dump out raw gold without having too much benefit for the game itself. I mentioned 250,000 accounts signing up for the Deadman mode, which is groundbreaking number. In reality, I guarantee majority of these accounts weren't there for the PvP game mode, they just wanted the amazing cosmetic kits. The core principle is to put extremely good rewards behind PvP activity and hope that people catch on. But in reality, what we've seen in practice has the opposite effect. Majority of the players just want the rewards and have no intention of participating in PvP. This is one of the top comments in a Reddit thread about trying to casually play DMM. I'm not having fun, I'm not gonna lie, but I want to bofak it, so I'm pushing through this. You can paint pretty much any wilderness activity on this comment and it would still be true for many players. Jagex knows that most casual players would never actively participate in PvP scenarios if those rewards weren't available. Once again, just like with power creep, putting people who want to PvP against people who don't want to PvP is not a long-term solution, and it just makes the entire discussion more heated because I can't imagine it's that much fun for either side. Putting all of this together, your average RuneScape player getting older with the way gaming market is shifting, all these arbitrary rules in the wilderness, and Jagex only having one solution, which is to pay casual players in with obscene amounts of rewards, I don't see how this situation can be solved in a way where everyone is happy. Either you make enough compromises for casual players, which will drive away core PvP audience we still have left, or you keep the way things are, which means more of a gap between the people who put 10,000 hours into PvP against people who started playing in the last few years. Whatever the case is, something has to give. And with the way PvP numbers are declining, not just in RuneScape but in every MMO, it seems like the death of wilderness is inevitable. Is it gonna happen right away? No, I don't think so. I'm confident this exact update formula will continue in 2026 as well. We're gonna get most amount of PVM content, couple of skilling and quest updates, and maybe one major PvP update. But I still believe in the title of this video, because this formula in the long run is simply not sustainable for RuneScape PvP. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in a few days with another video. Bye!